Jeremy, my first question is, I need to ask you, I have two t-shirts here, and I want to ask you which I should wear as we chat. Insignificance, which you gave me, and then the other t-shirt I have is...
I'd like to make a suggestion just to make it amusing for the audience. I think you should wear the insignificant, start with the insignificance, and then at a certain point say, just to add to the drama, I feel a little bit chilly. And you can either choose to expose or not expose and put the Merry Christmas to Lawrence over the insignificance.
Okay, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by doing that. I'm going
to wear a double feature.
Right, I'll be back in a second.
And now I had a friend, Joshua, my son's got a friend called Russell, who's a tailor. And he used to wear the record. He didn't play a record. He used to wear around his neck on a nice chain a particular vibe. He'd wear a Pink Floyd, a 45 with the hole taken out with a thing in the middle. So I said, "What's that?" He said, "Listen, I choose what to wear. I wear my record." It was a brilliant idea. I mean, because you can wear your film.
Yeah.
He went to the markets, Portobello and other markets which had, record secondhand 45s, and chose what he was going to wear. Brilliant.
Yeah, because we're in visual, and what we're trying to do today is something visual. I'm going to start by, I have a few DVDs here. You might recognize some of them.
Yeah, there are a few there.
Could I spend a moment just asking you to give me a sort of, just a kind of one word or one phrase reaction to these films?
Sure.
All of which you produced?
Belfast. Grottos, an exotic.
Grottos? Tale of Grottos? What does that mean?
It was filmed in lots of sort of grottos and caves and mazes and amazing locations. That was an amazing location.
Amazing locations. Antiki.
Waves and determination. So it took me 20 years to get that film made.
Wow. Remember a question from the member of the public saying, what was the film that took the longest time to make? Blood and Wine.
The King.
And the King is Jack Nicholson?
Sure.
Jack Nicholson, the King?
It could be Bob Rafelson or it could be Michael Caine, but Jack is the King.
Why is he the King?
Gable is dead.
But you told me once that you couldn't find a finer companion on a film. What did you mean by that?
He's the solidest people once he commits to people and to an idea. There can be no better companion, and an actor's a companion on the film.
The Brave, directed by Johnny Depp.
Marlon
Brando.
Marlon.
We'll talk about Marlon in a bit.
Suddenly I thought it was Blade, Norrington's film, but no, Blade of the Immortal. Miike, I mean, amazing, exotic, crazy, and wild Miike, who I adore working with. He's completely without borders, to work with a filmmaker without borders.
Are you without borders?
No, I've got borders. I mean, he's got borders too, but I'm spiritually close to him in the ideology without borders. Paris, 1968. Wear a seatbelt. I can tell you, Dennis Hopper said to me that he met a patrolman and he when he had a little bit of a shunt, and the patrolman said to me, you know, you should really wear a seatbelt, Mr. Hopper. I've never unbuckled a dead man.
Wow.
There was an amazing period to be in the middle of all that, starting with Ross Meyer and ending with a wonderful Julian Temple film, Malcolm McLaren, and, you know, from the beginning of the Sex Pistols to the denouement of that. I remained friendly with Malcolm.
And your role in this film were you exec producer in this?
I was executive producer, but I mean, I was with it. I started producing the film myself for 20th Century Fox with Malcolm, with Ross Meyer. Then the thing took years and years to work on, but it took a long time to shoot all that and to get the money to make it, and the credits devolved. What can I say? Those Largs, I have to say Largs, but I mean, it was wonderful working in Scotland with that wonderful posse of talent. David Mackenzie, fantastic book by Trocky. It had all the ingredients that I loved. Tilda, magnificent Tilda, Queen Tilda, and Ewan. It was great, and the great Peter Mullen. Very lucky with the cast. Wonderful music, David Byrne. It was very, very. It was a nice, wrong word. It was really a little gem. Well, that was a lot of fun making that film. Fun. That was really fun, Food Nation. But it was from Austin, Texas, Colorado Springs, El Paso, down to Chihuahua, Mexico to shoot that movie, the actual physical making of the film, because we couldn't shoot any of those food production plants anywhere, but we could get into Mexico. It was a shock. It was a shock to make the film, because to see those places and to see Fast Food Nation in naked. And of course, there are fantastic actors. Bruce Willis, again, fantastic actors came to that film and were fantastic colleagues on that film. And Rick Linklater was a joy. I'd love to work with him again. He's a director that I'd like to work with again, one of the directors that I work with, who I'd like to make another film with him.
We're going to come on to this film in a little moment, but initial one-sentence response to this film?
Jeremy, I want to make a shout louder than the Concorde.
You said that? Skolimowski said that?
Yeah. I mean, it was a revelation. The shout was a revelation to me, which broke barriers of filmmaking, because I worked with somebody who grew up with the Polish tradition of Łódź Film School and wrote Knife in the Water and made all those incredible films. And I suppose I got to pat myself on the back now today, because I had this idea, having seen Deep End, this is the man, and I chased him down, and he made a wonderful film. Nico.
We're going to get on to Eureka, so just give me an initial burst of reaction.
Lunacy. Blind ambition, of which I joined, of Bertolucci's epic, a moment when he wanted to make epics. I mean, he had made one epic, 1900 Novecento, and then we met because I'd worked in Asia and I was an independent producer, and I knew his family and his wife and his brother-in-law from London, and we met at a Chinese restaurant, which I suggested, and he said, listen, do you want to make a film about this? And he had an autobiography, or the authorized biography of Puyi.
Yeah.
And we went on that journey, which was an incredible journey, beginning of an incredible relationship, the richest relationship I ever had in the film business.
Right, we'll get into that richness. Another one by him, Little Buddha.
Another magnificent journey, physical journey, real journey. And it was one of the films, well, a lot of the films that I've made have been highly educational for me. And that was one of them. Just happiness. And another film that really, the ingredients were just right. And it was on the moment, on a wave of something that happened. And it was a really great movie. Yeah, it was a great movie. One of my best. Yeah, that I've been
What was that wave? What was the wave of something that was happening?
Japan. There was a wave of Japan. You know, there was a moment where Bridge of the River Kwai became something. That idea became something of the past, and you could promote the idea of a prison war camp, gay, from a Japanese point of view, and to get away with it in a world that was post-war. Not post-war, it was early 80s, but there was still a resonance. Well, that was a wonderful, I directed a film. I wanted to be a director when I wanted to be a train driver like my dad. And I became an editor and a producer by mistake, and I had a fantastic run, and I always wanted to make this story. This story had a resonance to me, and I directed a film, and I really, really was a fantastic. I'm so happy I directed a film, like having a baby, I suppose.
Get onto that as well. Steelbox. I Naked Lunch.
Yeah, I got a few steel. Yeah, we would release a few steel boxes. Yeah, Naked Lunch.
Yeah, I spent lots of my money.
Oh, wow, Life at the End of the Fork. Yeah, it was very, very ambitious. I have to say, it was very, at the time, crazy, you know, but it's mature. It was, I think it was a fantastic film. And it was the beginning of my collaboration with David, 3 movies.
Yeah.
And it happened in a strange way, which we'll probably talk about, how I met him in the East. Yeah, wonderful. When how many only films, totally English films with English sensibility wrapped around it, and happy to be involved.
Coming to the end of our quick hit.
Yeah, wonderful actors. Great Christopher Hampton script, fabulous ingredients, everybody. Peter Susitsky, Howard Shaw music. It was wonderful. Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, the same, when I look at it, same ingredients, fantastic Peter Prince script, great master director, although he was early in his filmmaking career. Incredible actors, incredible music by Paco de Lucia and Eric Clapton. Great Mike Malloy, the greatest Mike Malloy DOP. You're on the way, you know, and yeah, good early choices of mine.
And Stephen Frears.
Yeah, Stephen Frears, wonderful, master. Now, a lot of master filmmakers, or who have become master filmmakers in that group of film choices that I made, I chose to do.
Yeah. I've got a question here from Stuart Kenny. He says, Jeremy, you always seem to work with the very best directors. Are there any directors you wanted to work with and you couldn't, but you never had the chance?
I like to work with Sam Peckinpah.
Yeah.
I'd like to try to have a relationship with him. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to work with Buñuel. A lot of the directors would work with Sarah Silverman, who was a producer that I admired enormously, who influenced his filmmaking choice purely on taste. And in my early days as the producer, just after America's from Lawrence, and he said, I've been looking at you, and are you doing what I do? And I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I sort of choose for myself and my taste, and then I try and fashion it into something that can be with an audience. And yeah, that was the route, I suppose. And then I thought, that's it. You know, it was very good advice.
So we've got some images here, Jeremy, 20 images. And the first one, you worked many glamorous places in the world, but I'm sure, you know, the Riviera and Beijing, but no more glamorous than Bangor in Northern Ireland, which is you know, less than 10 miles from Belfast. And so our first images is from Bangor. Why did you find yourself there? What were you doing there?
Brutalist architecture. Bangor Leisure Centre for central London, East London, new building site. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant suggestion. We came to the most welcoming places for a filmmaker, Belfast, with the idea of recreating J.G. Ballard's with Ben. And then Ben is a director who's a director from a new era than me, and he can look at a place and he thinks of a place in a different way with set extensions, etc., etc. And then the location suggestion from the film commission there, or the film fund in Belfast, said, "Well, we'll go and look at Bangor Leisure Centre." It was just unbelievable. You went in there; it was all our locations. There was a swimming pool. There was a squash court. There was everything that was needed in a place that was going to be knocked down, which we assisted them in. It was perfect. And then on top of that, it was perfect. It was a wonderful place to make a film, and we found places around, like a garden, local garden there, which was a walled garden, and other locations around Belfast that we made. And it was a very, very friendly location to actually physically make the film in. So that was great. I'd like to be in Bangor right now, having a nice drink at a lovely pub on the edge. Sure. Maybe a Scotch egg.
There,
sorry?
I'm sure it's hot and sunny in Bangor, because it always is. We've got several questions here from somebody who's mysteriously called L. L, she or he says, did Ben Wheatley work from a script on High Rise, or did he improvise? And the second very nuts and bolty question is, where did the funds come from for High Rise?
So Amy Jump wrote the screenplay for High Rise for Ben. She's a fantastic writer, and she wrote a really good script. And so it was a very solid script, and it wasn't improvised at all. Maybe interiors of scenes, maybe minor nuances improvised as always, but that was a mainly script, which was Ben shot. And then where did money come from? Well, it came from the pirate treasure map, but it came from some money from, let me get this right, some money from the BFI, some money from Film 4, some money from me, and some money from, the money from me came via Hamway Films, which is a sales company of which I'm involved with. And then Belfast played its part. The Irish Film Board. I want to do the right word. I want to get the word right.
Northern Ireland Screen.
Northern Ireland Screen. They helped us enormously, and whatever the official rebates you get for shooting in Northern Ireland. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Yeah. And when we're on this moment, we're going to talk about Crash in a little bit of time, but also written by J.G. Ballard. But just tell me a bit about Ballard and your relationship with Ballard and why you like his writing so much.
I mean, he's my favorite, really my favorite. And I've read most of his stuff, and I still got some books of his I like to adapt. Moraine, he was my man, you know. He was somebody who when I first read his books, they moved me in a strong way. He was very prescient in thinking about the future. He was so smart. He did, yet as a man, he was so modest. He was like all really brilliant people. He was sort of totally different inside outside, you know. And it was a pleasure being with him because he was nothing like it. He loved to share a meal. He enjoyed my love of cars and dashboards and silly things like that, and veneer inside and leather and all that sort of stuff. And I became friendly because I've been trying for so long to make Crash, and so I met him and I became friendly with him. And then High Rise, and then other books of his I've attempted and I'm still attempting.
Could you just say a little bit more on that? You said like lots of brilliant people, totally different inside, outside. What do you mean by that?
Well, you can imagine things and write about things, or put things into your movies, or encourage things to be done in films, or whatever. Very strongly involved in what you're going to throw up, without necessarily throw up into the screen or out, without necessarily being anything like what you're thinking about. So it's about free thinking, and free thinking as an expression of art.
Yeah. And, you and I have talked about this before, Jeremy, but I think you're an example of this, and lots of your friends, say basically Jeremy is so nice, or so, not nice, that's the wrong word, but so warm in real life. And yet the films that you've made, so many of the films have been about violent sexuality or about violence more generally. Is that what you were seeing in Ballard? Is that what you were connecting to in Ballard?
Sure. I see it in Ballard, I see it in Cronenberg, I see it in Nico, in Bernardo,
Nic Roeg, yeah.
See it in Oshima, see it in Miike, see it in the filmmakers that I like, see it in Kurosawa, saw it in many people's films.
Can we go on to our next picture? It's it's Katharine Hepburn in the film Iron Petticoat. I think this is Iron Petticoat, isn't it? And there is your father.
There's my father with a bow tie, with James Robinson Justice.
Yes.
Along with Spratt on the right, who was a regular of my dad's. He was in many of his films. And Katharine Hepburn, who played I've forgotten the name, again with the K.
She was like a Russian spy, a Russian
spy. She was a Russian spy, yeah. And it's a Ninotchka, remake of Ninotchka.
Remake of Ninotchka. And you knew Katharine Hepburn?
Well, I didn't know. I mean, she came to stay at our house, and I remember my sister and I. She took us on a walk and made us flip stones and all that. And she was, dressed in, country clothes, and came for a walk with our family. And I remember it. It was significant, and it was, I remember it being significant. It is an early memory of mine. I mean, I was very lucky because the house was full of movie stars and we had no idea who they were when you were sort of 6, 7 years old. You don't know who these people are who are in your home. They're just grown-ups who are not fun and very, very gregarious,
And she, as I remember, she chose your father, Ralph, who we see in this picture. She wanted him to direct this film.
But he had a lot of hits, He was young and he was a young hit maker, at the time.
What were his hits?
Doctor films, he made the Doctor films and other films. I mean, he made a whole string of very successful films, and it's amazing seeing him there. I don't know, it would have been, but, all that old equipment, sound equipment behind there.
Yeah.
And just like from an aeons ago, just from a totally different.
Would your father have called himself an artist?
No.
No. What would he have called himself?
Professional. I mean, he called himself a craftsman,
An entertainer?
entertainer, craftsman. It was less about. Strange that I say he didn't consider himself as an artist. I got no idea. Never asked him.
Yeah.
But it was not thought at the time that films were art.
Yeah.
They were entertainment. They lived at the end of the pier. And that's the problem with film in our country. I don't want to bang on, really. I don't want to bang on. But I mean, the problem with film in our country is at the end of the pier, you know, and it's slowly getting pushed into the sea culturally because it's just not a national love of ours. We love movies, but we don't love the culture of cinema like the French, like the Italian. And listen, there's no, I mean, everybody knows their directors in those other countries. In Germany, they lionize our directors. Yeah, maybe somebody's heard of, go down to the streets, maybe some people, general people, I'm not talking about film enthusiasts. You know that the director is not a revered artist like painters, opera singers, ballet. To the culture, in a cultural world that we live in, these are more revered. Our culture, the cinema culture, is still considered a popular culture, and it's not protected, I don't think, because of the industry around it and the commerce around it, at the same way as the other arts, you know. And I don't think it's ever been included in the British mentality, cultural mentality of the ruling class.
Yeah.
I don't think film has been included as well, and there's a poor relation it's been included, because I've got the demonstration of Festival of Britain. We need to say, you know, Royal Festival Hall, this hall, that hall, film. Well, we got to be go under the bridge. We got a good idea. You go under the bridge at the South Bank. Okay, temporary measure.
There is, yeah.
You know, 70 years later, it's still there with trucks thundering over the roof with bad sightlines, you know.
Yeah.
That is metaphorical for me about how the government have seen it. And the support for films, thank God, is purely fiscal. It's not really as cultural. And the cultural side is more of a fig leaf.
And do you feel you've battled a bit against that?
No.
Your work?
No.
No, you haven't?
I don't feel embattled.
No, have you battled against that?
No.
And so what do you think, is it, so when somebody like Martin Scorsese decides to celebrate Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, you know, is that, obviously it's good that he did that, but did it take an outsider like Scorsese to show us, or to show the UK that its filmmakers were great?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. 100%. You asked Bertrand Tavernier about British cinema.
Yeah.
I rest my case.
Yeah, I had a dinner with him a few years ago, and we spent hours talking about British cinema, and he knew more about British cinema than I did.
And much more than me.
And I guess there's multiple traditions in British culture, aren't there? There's the realist tradition, the sort of, you could call it the Protestant tradition, which favors minimalism and understatement. But then you've got Michael Powell, you've got Derek Jarman, you've got William Blake, you've got all these people who are interested in excess. And I would put you in, there's an ambulance going by here, I would put your work, as we'll discover as we continue our conversation, people who are interested in the kind of excessive or the uncontainable aspects of human life.
Yeah, this one's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I like to know about the human condition in every sense, and I can accept it, you know, and I wouldn't make a film about pure stupidity as a value. But violence, it's in life. I mean, even if you're the most sheltered person in life, it's in life. Violence against animals, violence against human on human, human to animal. Humanity is a monstrous place.
Now we're going to skip through. Can we look at? We're going to look at picture number 4 just for a moment, because it's you. It's a lovely picture of you as a child sitting on the knee of your father's brother, Gerald.
You're right. That's my uncle Gerald. Wow. Let me look at that photo.
What is looking at the, Gerald Thomas, of course, made the Carry On films and other things as well. What do you think of when you look at that picture?
I think at how groomed Gerald looks. He was the most elegant. He was a really elegant man. He loved to be elegant and smart. Look at that. Wow. That was on the film set. They dressed like that on the film set then. When I used to go to the film set, everybody, DOP, sound man, they all had collar and tie and waistcoats or cardigans. Everybody wore jackets to work, unless you were absolutely doing a manual job. Everybody was dressed like the office.
And if Gerald was alive now, Jeremy, and he'd just heard that last few things that you said about British culture and not respecting its, wilder cinematic tradition, what would he have thought of that, do you think?
I think he was the guy, he was a really happy guy. He wouldn't give a shit, He didn't give a shit, He loved making people laugh, his film sets were laughter. He was laughter. He was just a guy, funny guy, who, I told you, I remember later, I said, where did these Gilby gags from? He said, I walked down the pier with Peter Rogers and Talbot Rothwell after a fine lunch at the Grand. We'd walk down the pier and I would spend half an hour picking up 30, 40 seaside postcards, which changed every year. We did this every year. And we'd go down and I would choose all these gags. And then we go back for tea. I'd sort of filter through them and I'd say, okay, listen here, Tolly. Scene 1, scene 5, scene 7, and through the film, so the gags came in, and a lot of them were sight gags, which were put in through seaside postcard humor, which was brilliant.
We've got this nice picture here of Joan Sims and Kenneth Williams.
I really loved, Gerald, he was very, very supportive of me, Gerald, because he was an editor before he was a director. And then he became a director on a film that my dad was going to direct. They were very close. And it was a very sort of, he edited for Walt Disney. I mean, he edited a proper film editor. And then he directed a film with Sean Connery's first film, Gerald directed, called Time Lock.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Look at that. Joan and Kenneth. She's
brilliant.
They're both so interesting, weren't they? Those two.
It's brilliant. I'd like to recognize what Carry On that is. I mean, I think it's Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head.
No?
Is it Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head?
Yeah, I think it is. It's the French Revolution.
Yeah. You
remember Joan? Joan, I remember seeing her in a Morrissey video called Ouija Board.
She's incredible, Joan Sims. She was a laughter, so funny, Joan. And then Kenneth Williams was absolutely wonderful and knew him very well. And there he is. I think he's Monsieur Camembert, big cheese of the French Revolution. I think he's played Monsieur Camembert. I'm not sure. I've forgotten. Anyway, every time I see it, it makes me laugh.
I'd like to skip through. We've got a picture number 6, it's Betty Box. Now, tell us who Betty Box is and why should we know about Betty Box? Why should we care about Betty Box?
Well, she was the queen of cinema, unknown today. That's shame on us. With Dirk Bogarde in front of the Taj Mahal, when my dad was directing a film called The Wind Cannot Read, which starred Dirk Bogarde as a RAF officer, I think. Anyway, she was a producer. She was a sister of Sidney Box, and who was the husband of Muriel Box, the director of Painted Veil. They were a film family, and Betty Box single-handedly during the war years, wrote, produced, directed, and pushed out movies. Adults, how many movies? She then went on to produce, I don't know, 40, 50 films. She was over the world. She sort of spanned Hollywood, New York, London, Italy, took film crews everywhere. She was an incredible producer. There would never been a woman producer like that. And she's unknown. It's really tragic. Because, she controlled all those people. And she was ranked most successful producer.
What was her particular skill, Jeremy? I know you called her Auntie Betty, is that right? Yeah. And
yeah.
What was her
she was in our lives because she produced my father's films, all my father's films. Not all, I think 90% of them she produced. And she drove an Aston Martin convertible. I was impressed by that. She was a complete car nut. And she had the latest Aston Martin she could have. And she used to race around into Pinewood Studios where she had the #1 parking spot. Amazing woman.
Jump to a picture number 8 now, which is you looking rather fetching in an open neck shirt. What moment is this in your life, and what are you doing?
This is look. Can you imagine? There's a film horse, and I can see a film synchronizer there, which is an editing thing. You stick the tape on the film, and loads of reels in front of me. I was editing a film. I was editing Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And that is Lee Studios in Kensal Road, London, which doesn't exist anymore. And that was a film directed by Philippe Morrow, produced by Sandy Lieberson, called Brother, Can You Spare a Dime, which was a compilation film which we researched for 9 months in America, across America, in the archives, and then put it together in London. It's about the great crash till Pearl Harbor, American history, told through a compilation film with no commentary, just edited together with music, and using Roosevelt as one side and Cagney movies as another. It was a time when we can get any movie. We even put Citizen Kane in that film and chopped it up. We just used every piece of footage.
It is very. I saw it recently, and it's very bold.
It was great. It was a good education for me. It was very educational because I was exposed to thousands of things when my brain was really absorbing things. I was very young. I don't know how old I was, in my 20s. I'm in 20.
Yeah. Our next picture, number 9, is you with a certain Dennis Hopper. And this is the film Mad Dog Morgan, which you produced when you were at the grand old age of 26. What was striking about this film? It's incredibly, it's quite shocking.
Well, I remember the 102 speaking parts. It was a madness. I had no idea. It was traditional, when I look at it, it was the traditional lunacy, another madness of mine to get to do it. Well, and Philippe. As a producer, you can join up with somebody who together you've got a strength. Although it seems madness. Okay, we're going to get Dennis Hopper, our hero from Easy Rider, to play a Peckham Paresh outlaw, dressed up as a bushranger. Ned Kelly, he was his hero. The hero of Ned Kelly was Morgan, and this was Daniel Morgan, who was the most famous, most violent bushranger, who held up so many ranches, and he was a Robin Hood type guy. And there was Dennis. Anyway, it was an amazing experience. It's much documented, this film. The making of the film in a not quite Hollywood, that film that they made about Australian cinema. It's a lead film in there of things that happened, and of course when Dennis was along for the ride, plus 140 drunk crew members, all in their 20s, wild in the outback. It was Mad Dog Morgan, real Mad Dog Morgan.
To produce a film at such an early age, were you confident? Did you know what you were doing? Did you feel like a sort of imposter or pretender to be producing at such a young age?
No. I left the UK. I was absolutely driven to start doing my own stuff, you know. And when Philippe, who I was editing with, said to me, "Let's go to Australia and make this film," we had a couple of tries at other things, and then Philippe got sent this book, and we went to Australia. Philippe Mora, who went on to make many films. We went to Australia, and when I, lived on the floor in St Kilda in Melbourne for a bit, and then we found resources, and then got some support from the Australian Film Development Corporation. In fact, there's an incredible story in that, if we got time to tell it.
Yeah, go for it. We've got as much time.
I love telling the story because it's a true story, and it's amazing. My father, I said to my dad, I'm going to. So I had a lot of advantages, because I had a father. I mean, my father couldn't give me a film business, but he could give me a lot of knowledge and contacts. And so I said to him, I'm going to Australia because I'm going to go there as a temporary resident, and I emigrated there temporary. And he said, well, I've never been to Australia, but I've had 30 hits there. And I've been invited so many times by Sir Norman Ridge, who runs the Great Union Corporation for Joint All Cinemas, and British Empire Films, BEF. British Empire Films, what a name, anyway. So I went with a letter with a rank gong man on the back, got it delivered to Sir Norman Ridge, and I was summoned to lunch in a club in Hyde Park. I was only 24 then, and I said, I told him what I wanted to do with an Australia doing. He said, okay, your father's never been here, but he's made us a fortune down here, your dad. Why did you go and see the person who runs my sales, my film company, British Empire Films? And I went to see John Fraser. And he said, I don't know what you said to the old man. You tell him to give you a third of the budget for Australian distribution rights. We never had such a thing. And I said, well, thank you very much. And on that, we had money from the FTs, and then we got private investors and found the money to make $500,000 to make this film, which was a great education and fantastic. In you look on things with a glow in the distance. At the time, it was a daily nightmare, like many films you make. But it was exciting. I mean, it's like what life's meant to be. The highlights of your life are meant to be exciting, whether it be a walk up a mountain or some incredible thing. Well, I make films, so those sort of experiences, when they glow after a certain time, because it was a great achievement getting all those things there, all those people together culturally. David Galpil, Jack Thompson, all the actors and everything else, and I was beginning to learn. I mean, it was something. I got completely screwed up on the deal at the end when we took the film to Cannes and somebody bought it. It began sort of years of litigation, and I started understanding the film business is a Wild West, and it's not a game. It's a cutthroat business, really cutthroat business. And I understood, you only understand by experience, really. Nobody can tell you, oh, listen, well, people tell me things, don't work with that person. You work with them, it's a nightmare, and they were right, but you never accept. It's hard to accept what people tell you.
Got a picture here now from our next picture is from a film we mentioned earlier, The Shout, directed by Skolomovsky. And I've got some questions about The Shout from Rose Baker, who's one of the great programmers of the Belfast Film Festival, our host today. She says, Jeremy, I'd like to know about Skolomovsky's The Shout. It's amazing. Alan Bates and electronic music and English countryside. And did I mention Alan Bates? She's clearly an Alan Bates fan. And how it was that the film that you produced was the first in your company at the time. Did it feel like a bold move? What was the process? Oh, she's asking lots of questions. And do you feel there's a difference now in how audiences receive films from when they would have done back when The Shout was first made? A number of questions there.
I'll ramble on around it. Thank you for the question. I loved making this film. It was having decided on Jerzy and understanding how brilliant it was to work with Jerzy, I found a fantastic line producer called Joyce Hurley, who was somebody who'd been a soldier, who was an incredible line producer, and she gave me the freedom and the understanding of how to make films, in a different way than I'd made The Mad Dog, which was made from chaos and effort and drive. This was made in a sort of super professional way, with me being the producer was able to push the edges a bit. And I told you, Joyce, okay, we're not. Anyway, Alan Bates.
Just on Joyce, you worked with her a lot, didn't you?
Robert Shaw was the actor we had in this film. And then his agent rang and said he decided he doesn't want to do it. He decided he didn't want to do it. And we had no actor, and the money side of it, who was Rank organization who supported me a bit with that, and the National Film Finance Corporation, Sir John Terry, God bless him, and a fantastic man, Terry Glinwood, who backed me and sold some Skolimowski pre-sales. We managed to put the money together. It was amazing. Anyway, I didn't have an actor, and then I trawled around immediately and suddenly found Alan Bates. This is a day before, you couldn't send faxes. There was nothing like that. Anyway, we couriered a script to New York where he was in a play, and he was interested in doing it. And his agent was a wonderful Michael Linnett, and he wanted him to do it, and he liked the idea. And there was a ship-to-shore radio conversation with Skolimowski and Alan and he was in the Queen Elizabeth, and he committed to the film. It was like days before Cannes, before the film was to be announced for sale. And then we got Alan, and then he started working with Alan and Jerzy. And one day he said to me, it's incredible. I'm driving a Bates. What do you mean? It's better than a Rolls Royce driving a Bates. That was beautiful. And I understood something. That was a really clever thing to say. When a director's got an actor like that, he's driving a Bates. He doesn't need to drive the thing.
No, that's a lovely story.
Anyway, wonderful actors in that film. When you look at the cast, you can't believe it. Again, the same ingredients back. When you look at the ingredients back on that movie, which is a producer's dig. A wonderful script from Michael Austin. Jerzy, wonderful director who put his touches into the script with Michael. Then actors, Susanna, John Hurt, Tim Curry, Robert Stevens, Jim Broadbent, just to name a few in that film. So incredible actors, incredible music from members of Genesis at the time. And again, Mike Malloy, the great DOP of Mad Dog, and Kubrick and Nic Roeg, not DOP, the operator of Nic Roeg and Kubrick for many films.
The next film that I'd like to talk about, when we asked the public for questions, we got more questions about this film than any other of your films. Can you guess which one it is?
No, I can't guess which one it is.
Okay, I'll give you a clue. I've got something here that I'll show you.
Bad Timing.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, this is the image that appears in the film Bad Timing. You're sitting in your den at the moment. Have you still got that? Have you still got the original maze from Bad Timing on your wall?
Yeah, it's here. It's here.
Can you twist your camera around?
I can turn the camera around.
Yeah.
To it.
Ludo, ciao Ludo. on the wall there, we saw that maze. So I've got a number of questions about Bad Timing. first one, directed by Nic Roeg. First one is from Michael McBroom. Jeremy, I wonder how your involvement in Bad Timing came about. What was the production like creatively? And could a film like Bad Timing be made today?
Yeah, I'm sure it couldn't. Well, could it be made today? I don't know. I don't know about that. Maybe. Never say never. How did it make? I'm very Roegian. I was very Roegian already because I hung around the set of Performance when I was in Notting Hill, when I was a boy, a lad. Then I saw Performance. Nic Roeg was already a legend to us in the film business at that time. And Donald Cammell also. And the culture was, very strong about that movie. And I have to say that probably the set of Performance at that very moment of time in the zeitgeist, it was the hippest place in the world. You know, Nic Roeg, where could have been hipper on the planet? Nowhere in the world, because that was Mick Jagger, James Fox, Anita Pallenberg, Michel Breton, Cammell and Roeg, and all the rest of it was going on around there in a Notting Hill gate in Powis Square. Wow. Anyway, I tried to get Nick to direct The Shout before Skolimowski. I had the script, and I went to Nick, and he's very nice with young people. He was very nice with me, really nice. And we sat and had a drink, and I went to see him at Pinewood, where he was preparing Flash Gordon, and with Nando Scarfiotti doing the designs, who I soon to work with, well, soon later to work with a bit. And he said, well, I tell you that I was developing this film, and the rights owned by Carlo Ponti, and it was called Illusions, written by E.A. Ludoff, and he owned the rights. He owned the rights to the book and the screenplay. If you can get those, we can get the rights to it and finance it. I'll direct it. And shook hands. He's a gent. I went to Rome, and I hustled and bustled. I got to see Carlo Ponti. And I bought the rights with $20,000. I don't know how I found the money. I found the money. I bought. I was so desperate to do this film. I didn't have a lot of money. And I went back to Nico and I said, I own it, Nico. Do you want to do it? At that moment, Flash Gordon collapsed. Sandy Lieberson who was a produced Performance and had produced Brother Can You Spare a Dime, and is an incredible man, wonderful, wonderful man. He became chairman of 20th Century Fox by default. Somehow he became 20th Century Fox chairman because of his relationship with the Ladd Company and Laddie and Jay Cantor and all those various characters. And he gave money to us for the world rights outside of other rights, which I rank organization backed again, which is one of the last films they made. And the filming was strong, to say the least, in Vienna, and a little bit in duplicating Vienna in London. And when we showed the film to the Rank exhibition, they went mad, and they took the Gong Man off it. And the trademark, we can't show this film with a trademark, and we can't show it anyway. And then I remember the head of distribution said to me, Jeremy, do you want to wait? And he had a packet of Players' Weights with him. I said, what are you talking about? I said, do you want to wait? And it was incredible. It was obviously his game. But I later dealt with a banker called Brian Quick. Mm-hmm. And he used to say, who helped me with the money for The Last Emperor. And he said to me, or used to say to me, do you want the quick answer? And I used to say, no, Brian, I want the slow answer, but a good answer, because his name was Brian Quick, So it's his catchphrase, And this guy had the catchphrase, do you want to wait? Anyway, we had to wait a long time. And finally it was released. And pretty excoriated, I have to say.
Were you scared? Were you scared? Because there's Art Garfunkel, Teresa Russell in a...
No, that stimulated me. It stimulates me now. Yeah. I love it. That's what I do it for. That's why I do it, yeah. Because we knew it itched. It made an itch, It did an itch, and look what has happened to Bad Timing. People love that film. But at the time, it was very challenging, like all those films, very challenging. Even Merry Christmas to Lawrence, it challenged some things, and you got headlines in the main reviews, Empire of the Senseless, because Osher made Empire of the Senses, offended that critic unbearably.
Yeah.
And then you get the headline like that in the next film. It's very hard. It's very hard to recover from those body blows of really shocking reviews from hero critics.
Yeah.
And banning and extreme reactions to things that are works of art by major artists. Totally entertaining and fascinating and brilliantly put together. And that happened. And, Robert Hughes's Shock of the New, it's terribly accurate.
Yeah.
Because Nic Roeg, until he sort of, in his first dozen movies or whatever, he was shocking people with his style, his radical style, of his pre-digital and all that. This is all done in a sort of like a mosaic of cut up of something which was so good, and it's Roegian style. There's a clear. Nick had something like when you hear certain guitarists, you can recognize them playing the strings, and Nico had that. He could really, and Bernardo had that, and Cronenberg's got that. That you could look at their films, you wouldn't know who directed them, and you could suddenly recognize the filmmaker.
On Nic Roeg for a moment, in Bad Timing, we've got this relationship between Art Garfunkel and Harvey Keitel, where it's almost like they are understanding each other extrasensorily, and then in other Nic Roeg films like Eureka that you produced, or, like Don't Look Now Again, Roeg seemed to...
Performance, even more in performance.
Yeah,
performance than Mick Jagger.
He seemed to believe that people could, connect in some way irrationally or supernaturally. And then when I read that book that Roeg wrote for Faber, again, there's this sense of the supernatural. I don't believe in the supernatural, and yet I love his films. So how does he get away with that?
Well, he was very interested in the supernatural. I mean, being interested in something and believing in something is very... I really, really interested in the idea of reincarnation. Wouldn't you? Do I believe it? I made lots of films involving that. It doesn't mean I believe it. Maybe I believe it. I don't know if I believe it.
That's good.
It's like, I don't believe that the world is dead outside my understanding and my space that I'm in.
What does that mean?
Do you believe a ghost exists or not? Do you believe other people when they say they've seen a ghost?
No.
Do you believe in any spiritual? I mean, do you believe in any spiritual? I believe there's something else. There's other forces out there, because other forces of nature can make you feel things very strongly. And I don't know that. I don't know that a tree doesn't have any sensitivity,
Oh, yeah. I believe in that. Yeah.
So, getting back to Nick,
yeah.
He was very interested. His library was full of that, and he was fascinated by that side of life.
Because it's liberating, isn't it, to release yourself from reality, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, we love all those fantasies. They're very popular for those that fantasy area of fantasy, which is taking dreams onto the screen. And now it can be done in many ways, in a different way than it has been done in the past. And now people are making people, with digital dreams,
When you write your autobiography, you should call it "Taking Dreams Onto the Screen." I've got a question from Stuart Sloan, who also will be editing our conversation today. If it needs any editing, Stuart, again on bad timing, says, was the editing and bad timing all pre-planned, or did Nic Roeg just shoot loads and then figure it out in the edit room afterwards?
Well, it's a bit of everything. I mean, the screenplay would reflect the film, and that would be juxtapositions within the film, which were made so it made sense. Then there would be what Nic had shot, and he didn't just shoot it. I mean, Nic is he shoots accurately. He doesn't just bang off. He doesn't bosh in and bang off. He's was very precise filmmaker. It's a myth, really. I mean, there's certain people who do just multi-camera setups and different shooting style. But Nic was a sort of craftsman. Again, he was a craftsman who grew up as a DOP and had an understanding, and he had a respect for the cost of putting film through a camera. It's a different world now because film was expensive to put through a camera. It cost nothing to keep a digital camera running all day. It was a different feeling of getting everybody ready. Okay. So everybody done their makeup checks super and clothing checks super accurately, because sound rolling, magnetic tape was running through the Niagara. Film rolling at 24 frames per second through the panner, whatever panner it was, to be processed. Action, okay? Everybody was very then the clapperboard, then action. Everybody is focused, super focused, because they know film's going through the camera, and it had a different, so that side of filmmaking, it really has changed gigantically to me, to what I've seen in my life of how films are made. When films have been made on film stock, there was a different respect for shooting footage.
We've got an image coming up now, number 10. Tell me what's happening in this image, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, that was the kiss, but it was a mistake. This was an incredible mistake. So this is in Ryuichi Sakamoto, the great composer, rock star, actor, environmentalist, and one of the goats. That's greatest of all time, by the way. And Bowie's back of Bowie's head, in the place where we were at a prison war camp. In fact, it was just tents and a few buildings which were in construction. If you look at it carefully, it wasn't a prison war camp. It was a film. We found a valley which had old greenhouses in it, which you'd see in the film, and we made that. And then this was a scene where Bowie came up to the commandant and kissed him on both cheeks. Anyway, at that very moment, unbeknownst to the camera came off, the sprockets came off the film, and it came across the image. Anyway, this film was shot on a desert island in the South Pacific, and we send the rushes back to Tokyo Lab. And 4 days later, we hear, listen, we've got a problem on this film. Where is it? Oh, it's right in the middle of the scene. This was the only time it happened, by the way. There were hundreds of people, Oshima was a one-take man. He didn't believe that anything could go wrong. So we had to step print this kiss. That's all there was of it. And it went into slow-mo. a juddery slow-mo because we had 12 frames of it, and we had to step print it 4 times, four frames, boop, 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 like that. And that was acclaimed as a creative. It was a random quality of art. That and the butterfly landing on David Bowie's face. That was just, we didn't a moth. I mean, we didn't arrange for a moth to land on his face. A moth landed on his face during the take. These things, which make the scene. Wow, how did they do that? Anyway, so that in a pre-MTV world, that with those sort of cutting style of juddery frames and all that.